Somebody call a doctor.
I want a bigger logo. You can't handle a bigger logo.
G'day, this is the Dr. Branding Podcast. I'm your branding Dr. Frank. The surgery is open once again. Let's answer our next patient's question. Today comes from Nick in Canada. How much do I spend on marketing? People older and wiser than me keep saying 20% should go to marketing, but is that just 20% of revenue? What is a reasonable marketing spend for my brand? Again, Nick from Canada, thank you for the question. Now, in the Dr. Branding Podcast, the way we roll is we diagnose the problem first, then prescribe a solution to do better branding and, in this case, marketing as well. Now, for this kind of question, what do we spend? What do we put into our marketing budget? I call this marketing malaise, which is this uncertainty of what to spend on marketing and even this discomfort and uncertainty in spending money on marketing itself. But what I would say to really get to the core of this is bring it back to what marketing really is, because there's this misconception, I believe, for those that are in branding, maybe even in marketing as well, but definitely in business, that marketing is just only to do with how we promote the brand. Definitely it's part of that. People see it as advertising, your social media, your branding, your email newsletter, podcasts, merchandise, events, all this stuff, yeah? But marketing since 1960 has been based on 4 key fundamentals. They've been around obviously now for 60 years, and they are product, price, placement, and yes, promotion. They all start with P. Promotion is one of them, but we need to be investing in all these 4 areas. And in terms of, I'll come back to promotion, but in terms of product, this for you, if you're a service-based business or you're a product business, same thing, is focusing on what offering you have to give to your customer, to your client, to your consumer in general. Maybe it's just your audience. What are you offering them? And getting that right really comes back to the strategy you have of who your customer is, what their needs are in terms of that market orientation to facilitate what product we're going to put out into the market and really position it as something that people need. That is one part of a very important part of marketing that gets often overlooked or not realized that that's part of marketing, so that marketers need to come to the table to really help you create an effective product that is made for the end user, that customer, that client, that audience, in a way that is needed, is wanted, is desired, is something that people line up for, like an Apple iPhone come launch day, like I did many years ago for the iPhone 4. That's one part of marketing. The second one is price. And price, again, is something that's very much overlooked in terms of how you position your brand based on the price of your offering. So your offering is maybe something that's very premium or something that's very affordable. And how we position that is then how we can promote it or how we can package it up into something that people use, or even where it's placed for somebody to buy it. So price is a very influential part of how we market and position your brand. And the next part is placement. Where do you physically or geographically, or where do you show up for somebody to buy what you have to offer? If it's a digital shop front like a Shopify site, or it's on the shelf in a supermarket, or it's only available in certain locations based on the geographic need, like a bait shop that's near either a lake or near the beach, that's where placement comes into marketing. And if we're getting placement wrong, the certain customer isn't there to buy it, but they are in a certain other location, or they're looking for it in a different location where they might be able to find you and use what you have to offer, then that's again something that has to do with marketing, and it's intertwined with your product, your placement, your price, your promotion. And then the last P of marketing is obviously promotion. And this is the factor that most people will put their spend into, and most of their time and effort into considering to make sure that their brand is out there, is thought of, is trusted, is liked, is bought, all these things that we can really measure the effectiveness of our marketing. And when it comes to something like advertising, I saw this research in the last 12 months, I think, from a Dr. Grace Kite from Magic Numbers. And she was showing this graph, which I found really interesting, is of what the most optimal advertising spend is. Now, we're talking about marketing spend. Is it 20%? Is it less? Is it more? But in terms of, say, something like an advertising spend, her research suggested that anywhere between 5 and 7% was the most optimal investment in your branding based on your yearly revenue, so 5 to 7%, to have the best ROI, the best return on investment without having diminishing returns or not putting in enough in to get the right return on investment that you're looking for. And this obviously was probably more geared towards bigger brands, but I think in terms of what you can spend on something like advertising out of the full pool of what you put into marketing is a good little estimate of what you could be investing to promote your brand with paid advertising. 5 to 7%, that one. But it comes down to what you can really afford. Is a budget consideration. Any good brand strategy has a budget consideration tied into it. In terms of a good brand strategy, market orientation is what we have to offer, something that's needed. We look at our segmentation, who might need it, and what kind of category entry points we can be thought of in those spaces for someone to consider us. What either category entry points or what type of customer are we trying to target, our positioning, and then some objectives and tactics. And tied to those objectives and tactics of what we're going to do to really make sure that the positioning is working and we're targeting these people with an effective product, placed in the right place, priced at the right price, is what we can afford to do, is that budget, yeah? So it really comes down to what you can afford after all your overheads have been accounted for. So after your payroll, after something like mandatory retirement funds, like in Australia, employers have to pay superannuation to their employees' retirement funds. But in terms of what you do, you treat it like maybe another employee, or you treat it like a mandatory expense for your business, but more so than an expense, more an investment that you do as a non-negotiable. It is part of your budget allocation each financial year to say, we can't touch this, because without having our marketing, how are we going to have business? And yes, sometimes businesses, if times are getting tough, your budget's getting constrained, you don't have enough cash flow, then marketing is traditionally one of the first things to get a cut. But customers not thinking about your brand, not considering your business over others because you're not constantly show up, is going to likely be a greater cost to you than cutting marketing altogether. Because the way I see it, and maybe it's biased, but please take this logically, is that without customers thinking about you when in a buying situation, when there's only 3% of buyers in the market at the time for what you have to offer, 97% aren't, and there's some research on that on LinkedIn that you can find, is that they're not going to think of you when in that buying situation. And if they're not buying from you, then you don't have your business. You go into this downward spiral again because you're not showing up, you're not being present, you're not being physically available, depending on the type of business you obviously are. For some businesses, yes, they won't need to always invest in promotion, but when your costs do go up, let's say, over time, inflation, all those kinds of different factors, you need to adjust your pricing. And the whole dynamic of your brand will likely shift. The product cost goes up. Your offering shifts in terms of what you can offer for the same price. We've seen this in shrinkification in chocolate bars and chip packets and things like that, where the company is offering the same product, less in the box or less in the packet for the same price, or for a higher price to still maintain your profitability. And then from that, that offering is talking about where you then place it. Is there going to be enough price elasticity in the market for people to still consider buying your product if it's within their price range? It might not be. And then you've got to consider where the market is to be able to afford that. Is it more affluent areas? Is it to a certain type of buyer? Do we need to niche our offering and our positioning to a certain type of buyer rather than being mass marketed? All these different factors that might happen. And then obviously you do need to potentially communicate differently in terms of your promotion. So the communication strategy you have might change considerably. You might not go down the route of promoting on a certain platform that isn't meeting that right target anymore. They might be somewhere else, or you might do certain other direct marketing efforts that engage with existing clients or customers rather than trying to find new business. All of this can change. And so in terms of product placement, price, and promotion, they're all linked, and it's kind of like a central nervous system of your business in terms of always maintaining these 4 different facets, as well as your brand, obviously, as well as maintaining that perception of what someone feels about you, to consider you over others and keep constantly thinking about you because of your marketing, staying present, staying available. It all comes together here. So where I'm going with this, to answer Nick's question here, what do you put aside for marketing is the rough guide that I see best of value to somebody in terms of total revenue in a year. If you can allocate between 5 and 15%, look, the more the better, obviously, in terms of getting your brand out there more and more to help you grow. But between 5 to 15% is a reasonable benchmark, I believe, to invest in spending on marketing. If it's a marketing agency to help you promote, if it's a brand manager, be it internal or a contractor like myself, to help you maintain your brand consistency across touch points, to make sure you're updating your product packaging, to have new call outs or shift with the positioning that your brand is moving in a different direction and evolving with, to meet new customers with new products or in different places, to really advertise and get in front of those people to get their attention. All these different things that you can factor in. But it really does come down to that budget allocation, yeah? And that capacity that you have that I said at the start of this. You might not be able to afford all the things that you want to do to get the job done. And look, if you tie your brand strategy to every financial year, which is a good practice to do, it might mean that strategy plays out for 2 years, 3 years. And every financial year, you have that little bit extra budget to be able to hit those tactics and meet those objectives. As a result, where you can't do everything in the first year, it might need to be in the second year, and it might not be until Q4 of the second year. What we want to do is allocate the budget effectively with what you have, based on the tactics that you want to achieve, what you want to engage in to achieve your objectives. So things might need to be tabled for later. You just got to kind of be very aware of what is going to be the most viable thing for your business to get as much eyeballs as possible, possibly, or to be in the right places for that right spend. So it might be to a LinkedIn ad rather than an Instagram, Facebook ad. And that might be a higher price associated with LinkedIn than it is for Instagram. But the right buyers are on LinkedIn, let's say. Or it might be for a billboard above a busy street, which is in a location where one of your shops are, to maintain some higher traffic coming through your shop front. So with that, again, 5 to 15% is a good base to work off. Obviously, if you're a smaller business, you do need to have that momentum to build up more and more revenue that you're going to have to push out your brand further and further with new products in new places at maybe a higher price or a better profit margin, and then obviously promoting it more and more and more. So more and more people are aware of you, consider you, and then buy from you, and even repeat buy from you. If they're an existing customer, they keep thinking about you, they keep coming back to you. So with that, I hope that helps you, Nick, and any of you that are listening. I hope that this kind of these answers have helped you too. Now, please take a piece of brand candy, my free resource guide to do better branding that you can get on your way out at g'dayfrank.com/candy, or it's that way. You can also make an appointment in that same link if you have a brand ailment that you want to have some help with, and I'll see you at the next appointment in my next episode. Bye, everyone. Thanks for listening. The surgery is now closed. The Dr. Branding Podcast is hosted by Reagan Frank McCrill, that's me, and for legal reasons I want to be clear that I am not a registered or qualified doctor. The premise for this podcast is that it is a satirical analogy for branding consultancy to help others with their brand success. This podcast is also sponsored by my branding business, G'day Frank. Say g'day today by booking a call with me at g'dayfrank.com.